So I thought today I would share a little bit about my story. My friends tell me that I have nerd gone business, and I think that that's very true. I sort of embrace the weaknesses and the strengths of that background. And I thought we've got time for Q&A at the end, so I thought I'd just give you a little overview of my journey, and then hopefully we can go through some of the finer details when we've got questions for the whole panel. So yeah, I started, I had to decide what I wanted to do at uni, and I was a massive nerd. I enjoyed playing with computers. My two older brothers picked on me and also were much better at everything computers and sport related, and so I became a very fiercely competitive nerd. And I had to decide what I wanted to do, and I must say that computer science doesn't typically ring out. Certainly back in, this was 1999, I had to decide. It was about the end of the dot-com crash, so I think that the highlight of dot-com was really waning at that time, but it still was quite clear that technology held so many, I guess as a science-based person, I really enjoyed technology and how it changes the world. So in the end, I decided to choose a nice broad degree, engineering computer science, went off to uni and proceeded to get completely schooled by real nerds. People who could code better than me, people who could understand the algorithms better than I could, and just generally did much better at everything, including maths. I did talk a little bit more than the average computer scientist, and I thought there might be something there for me. So when I graduated, I went into a challenging role as an applications engineer, and again was schooled by my competitors in the business. They were much better engineers. They wrote the code cleaner, they wrote it faster, and they just generally were more creative. But I did notice that whenever I went to meetings, and this was quite a small business, so I think that the advantage for everyone in the room about small businesses is it's really cool to get your hands on a broad breadth of opportunity. You learn a lot of skills, you have to be a little bit of a generalist, and for me that suits my style. Certainly at the beginning of your career, it's fantastic to get a bit of everything, because I must say I've pivoted what I wanted to do. I never thought I would be in payments when I graduated from uni. So in this small business, I started to realise that people didn't really position things very well, certainly not to my liking. They were either completely inaccurate with all spin, which doesn't last very long in a solutions environment, or they were true engineers that I went to uni with, and they were completely incapable of positioning anything, and the business people's eyes glazed over, and that didn't work either. So I started to get a sense that this might be something that would suit me, suit my style, suit my personality, and I thought I'd test it. And this is where some of the learning started to come in. People don't always give you a chance on something you haven't done before. They don't always, particularly in sales or any sort of business like that, those skills, it's something that you really have to force your way into. And so I began educating myself, and this has been a trend through a few of the pivots, I'll call it. They didn't have that word back then, but nowadays it's in the lexicon. Really it was about training myself for what I wanted to do, and I'd had a sample for it, and I think again I really appreciate the benefits that were provided by a small business to get a sense for what you want to do. And I read every book on the topic I could possibly do. I was downloading MP3 audiobooks, probably not paying for them, to really get a sense for that market. And I was talking to every single person I possibly could. And I guess another theme that I learned in that role is that you should never expect to be an expert day one. And people, and Monty said it about some of the things when he started, and I think this has rung true for me in every single component of my career, was that you actually do start off on the bottom step, and you have to learn, and you have to accept that that's the case. And I think mastering a concept is not, it's not about talent, It's about the growth mindset. It's about deciding that you want to learn, and if you have a passion for it, you'll learn much faster. But a mix of passion and motivation will certainly get you there. And so at the end of a 3-year journey in digital agencies, I joined PayPal. And PayPal wanted to know more about e-commerce back then, believe it or not. They had a lot of payments guys, a lot of telco guys, a lot of bankers, but they didn't have a lot of people from the e-commerce. They didn't know about conversion rates, or at least some people did, but it wasn't core to the value proposition. It wasn't core to their everyday conversation with their customers. And I joined PayPal at a great time. We had about 10 of the top 100 retailers. We've now got 98, and in Australia it's been an amazing journey. And through that I've learnt some pretty amazing things. Payments are complicated, and certainly one of the things that I enjoy doing is making the complicated simple. And I think if we look at the environment today, fast forward to Braintree, the environment today is very much about making things simple for your clients. Complicated topics, businesses want to focus on their core business and they don't want this complexity bubbling up. And we saw this with Apple and iOS. Everyone could have written apps on the early smartphones or in the early phones, but it was incredibly complicated. You had to worry about screen luminosity, whether it was on the CDMA or GSM network. There was just a bunch of complexity that made that a challenge. And Apple came along in that, which has been the hallmark of their success. They made it very simple. They said, here's a nice simple API and platform, come along and integrate apps, and the app explosion began. We're seeing that now in payments with Stripe and Braintree and businesses like that. Focus on your core business, integrate this and focus and don't worry about the complexity of payments. We're seeing it in startups with SaaS. In the old days when I started out, it would cost you 100 grand to set up a small business. You needed a little Microsoft server out the back. You had to buy all these Office licenses. Nowadays, there's startups doing it in their spare time, not even in their garage, in their full-time jobs. They can start enterprise-looking businesses that look like billion-dollar companies on infrastructure that was made so simple for them. So I think that that's my latest learning, one of many, is that if you are interested in a space, understand it to the point that you can make it simple for everyone else. And if you're not able to do that, then relook at what you know and try harder. Because really I think that that's where the market's moving. There's a lot of specialisation, but as well I think it's all about that ability to communicate, make things focus on the end customer, on the end need. And I think that in technology, I think it's something that's coming along, and I think we'll see this trend continue. Thank you.